You ever seen a storm lose its power the moment the winds die down? That's what happens when a narcissist realizes you don't care anymore. No more reactions, no more fear, no more control, just silence. And that silence, it shakes them more than any scream ever could. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, the first thing that hits them is the loss of control. For a narcissist, control isn't just something they want. It's the very foundation of how they interact with others. From the beginning, they study you, they learn what makes you smile, what makes you cry, what makes you react. They build a psychological playbook tailored just for you. They use praise, guilt, fear, charm, and even silence as tools to manipulate and maintain emotional lawford dominance. This isn't love, is possession wrapped in the illusion of affection. And once you step away mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that power they once had begins to crumble. Control to the narcissist equals validation. If they can make you chase them, cry for them, argue with them, or even hate them with passion, they feel alive. Your reactions feed their ego. Your confusion fuels their sense of superiority. As long as they can get a rise out of you, they believe they still matter. But when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, defending, or justifying, when the silence from your end becomes consistent and unshaken, that illusion of control disappears. It doesn't just disappear peacefully, it collapses violently in their mind. They start to sense the shift long before you think they do. They're highly tuned into power dynamics, especially when it starts slipping from their fingers. They may act like they don't notice. They may pretend they don't care. But behind the mask, they're panicking. Why aren't you begging anymore? Why aren't you checking in, arguing, or crying? They replay conversations. They analyze your new still. For someone addicted to control, that stillness is the scariest thing in the world. At this point, the narcissist may try to regain footing. They'll say things to provoke you, maybe something cruel, something passive-aggressive, something that used to always get a reaction. They want to see if there's still some hook left in you. But when you remain unfazed, they feel exposed, weak. And that's something they work overtime to avoid. Their identity is built on being untouchable, in control, admired, or feared, but never ignored. Indifference from someone they once controlled is a signal the game is over. This loss of control can also make them reflect. Though not in the way most people would. They won't sit down and think about what they did wrong to push you away. Instead, they'll wonder how they lost the ability to keep you hooked. They'll blame you for becoming cold, disloyal, or ungrateful. They can't process that the problem was never your devotion, it was their exploitation of it. So they may shift quickly into defensive tactics, acting as if they were the one who walked away, rewriting the story so they don't have to sit with the truth. They lost you because they never truly had you. Only your emotional energy. And yet, despite the internal chaos, they'll often pretend like nothing's wrong. Narcissists are actors. They might start flaunting new relationships, achievements, or a sudden burst of joy, trying to trigger jealousy or doubt in you. But it's just theater, a performance to regain control, not over you directly, but over how they perceived. They can't control you anymore. So they try to control the narrative. What they don't understand is that when someone truly stops caring, they've already mourned the relationship. They've already grieved the false hope and emotional abuse. What's left is clarity. And clarity is the death of manipulation. So the narcissist doesn't just lose a person. They lose the illusion that they were ever truly in control. And for them, that's the most devastating loss of all. when a narcissist realizes you no longer care. One of their most common and telling reactions is either erupting into rage or retreating into cold silence. Both responses are defense mechanisms designed not only to reassert dominance, but also to punish you for daring to detach emotionally. This isn't random. It's deeply calculated, rooted in the narcissist's fragile ego, an obsessive need to be the center of your emotional world, whether through love, fear, or chaos. Spite narcissistic rage is not like ordinary anger. It's explosive, disproportionate, and often unpredictable. It comes from the deep wound of perceived rejection or abandonment. The moment you stop reacting, stop chasing, stop being affected by their games, the narcissist experiences what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, a blow to their carefully constructed self-eye mole. That injury doesn't just sting, it burns. And instead of sitting with that discomfort or reflecting on their behavior, they project it outward. You become the target. You'll hear harsh words, see rational outbursts, and possibly experience character assassination. They might say things designed to cut deep, to invalidate your worth, to attack your identity, to make you question the very progress you've made. But the goal isn't just to hurt you. The goal is to shock you back into emotional engagement. The narcissist doesn't care if you cry, scream, or fight back. As long as you feel something, as long as you give them energy, because your emotional response confirms that they still matter, that they still have influence. They thrive off this kind of toxic connection where chaos is mistaken for passion and manipulation is mistaken for love. If rage fails to ignite you, if you remain calm in the face of their fury, the narcissist may suddenly switch tactics, shifting from fire to ice. Cold silence is another powerful weapon in the narcissist's arsenal. It's not peaceful. It's punishing. Is designed to make you feel invisible, unworthy, or abandoned. The narcissist wants you to feel the void they've created, hoping it will pull you back toward them. They might ignore your messages, pretend you don't exist in a shared space, or completely disappear, only to return when they sense your emotional walls cracking. This kind of silence isn't about needing space or reflection. It's about control. It's a power play, an emotional freeze out meant to provoke insecurity in you. The narcissist believes that if they withhold attention and affection long enough, belief that you'll come crawling back just to feel something again. This back and forth between rage and silence creates a psychological trap. For people who've been entangled with a narcissist, these extremes can be confusing. You may begin to question yourself. Was I too harsh? Did I do something wrong? That's the design. The narcissist wants to keep you emotionally unstable, questioning your own reality so they can slip back in and reclaim control. But what they fail to realize is that real detachment is resilient. When you truly no longer care, their rage becomes noise and their silence becomes space. You begin to see through the performance. You recognize that neither the outburst nor the absence is about you. It's about them scrambling to maintain relevance in a world where their manipulation no longer works. And that realization for the narcissist is infuriating. Whether through loud, destructive anger or chilling, calculated silence, the narcissist is reacting to one truth they can't tolerate. They are losing their emotional grip. And for someone whose entire sense of worth is built on controlling how others see and feel about them, that's a terrifying reality. So they fight it in the only ways they know, by being louder, meaner, colder, more distant, hoping you'll break and they'll win. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, their first instinct is not acceptance or reflection. It's desperation. That desperation drives them to manipulate. But this time, the manipulation takes a different form. It's not the early charm or subtle mind games you may have once fallen for. Now it's frantic. It's disorganized. It's fueled by fear. They know you're slipping away, and they'll try every tactic in their emotional playbook to pull you back in. This is when the love bombing returns. The guilt tripping begins, and the performance of victimhood takes center stage. They may start by acting like they've changed. Suddenly, they're kind, thoughtful, saying all the right things. You'll hear lines like, "I'd been thinking about us," or "I didn't realize how much I hurt you." These aren't confessions rooted in growth. They're calculated moves meant to reset the emotional connection and make you doubt your decision to walk away. They'll recall memories that once meant something to you, trying to stir nostalgia. They'll offer apologies, not because they feel remorse, but because they need you to respond. Every gesture is baked, and they're hoping you'll bite. If love bombing doesn't work, they shift to guilt. This is where they remind you of everything they supposedly did for you. They'll twist history, exaggerate their sacrifices, and downplay their mistreatment. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me becomes a common phrase. The goal is to make you second guess your feelings. They want you to wonder if maybe you overreacted, if maybe you were too harsh, if maybe, just maybe, they deserve another chance. Is emotional blackmail cloaked in sentimentality. They know guilt is a powerful tool, especially when used against someone who once cared deeply. Then comes the act of victimhood. This is when the narcissist paints themselves as the one who's been wrong. They'll tell mutual friends, family, belief, or even social media that you abandoned them, that you were cold, that they were trying and you walked away. It's not enough that they lost control over you. They want to control how others see you too. They need sympathy. They need an audience to applaud their performance. And in some cases, they need new supplies, someone else to admire them, to feed their ego, to play the role you walked away from. But even while seeking someone new, belief, they often keep trying to reel you back in because your detachment still feels like a wound they can't heal. Throughout all of this, there's a deep sense of urgency behind their actions. The manipulation feels heavier, more intense, because they can sense your emotional door closing. Narcissists rely on emotional reactions. When you're angry, upset, or even defending yourself, you're still giving them attention. But when you no longer react at all, they start to unravel. It's like trying to revive a dying flame with a storm around you. They panic. They scramble. They get reckless. They might even cycle through all their tactics within the days of love bombing in the morning, guilt tripping by lunch, and passive aggressive silence by evening. These last digit manipulations aren't about love. They're about survival. Emotional survival for a person whose identity is tied to how others perceive and respond to them. They don't know who they are without an audience. Without someone to manipulate, without someone emotionally tied to them, your indifference exposes that. It shows them a mirror they can't handle. One that reflects their lack of true connection, their emptiness behind the charm, and the reality that their games no longer work. So they try harder, not because they care about you, but because they can't stand that you've stopped caring about them. When a narcissist realizes you don't care anymore, they experience a type of internal collapse that many people around them never see. On the outside, they may appear composed or even indifferent, but inside their ego begins to unravel. What you're witnessing isn't just disappointment or hurt. It's something far deeper and more fragile. The narcissist's entire identity is built around a carefully constructed image of superiority, power, and control. They survive on the validation and emotional energy of others. So when you no longer react, when you no longer seek their approval or respond to their drama, It's like pulling the plug on their supply. And without that supply, their sense of self starts to crumble. This ego collapse doesn't look like a quiet moment of realization. It looks like confusion, anger, and desperation. Narcissists rely on illusions. They believe they're smarter, more attractive, more important than those around them. These beliefs are not grounded in reality. They are defenses against deep-rooted insecurity. They need others to reflect those illusions back to them. They need people to admire, fear, or envy them. When someone close to them detaches emotionally, it disrupts that reflection. Suddenly, the narcissist is forced to confront a truth they've been running from their whole lives. They are not as powerful or necessary as they believe. This confrontation is deeply painful for them, but they can't show it in a healthy or vulnerable way. Instead of expressing sadness or remorse, they lash out or withdraw. They may try to rebuild their ego by blaming you, telling themselves you were ungrateful, disloyal, or unworthy. That blame isn't just about hurting you. It's about protecting themselves from the truth that their manipulation failed. Because if they admit the truth that someone saw through them and walked away without looking back, it breaks the illusion completely. That kind of emotional exposure is unbearable for someone who's built their identity around being untouchable. To cope with this ego injury, that they often create a new version of events in their mind. In this version, they weren't abandoned or ignored. They were the ones who left. Well, you weren't strong or healed. You were cold and cruel. This narrative helps them preserve their false sense of superiority. They may even spread this version of the story to others, using it to win sympathy and admiration. They can't accept the idea that you walked away because you saw them clearly. But that kind of clarity threatens their entire emotional structure. Sometimes this ego collapse drives them to obsess over you, not because they love you, but because they need to win again. They need to prove to themselves and possibly others that they still have control, that they can still pull you back in. They may monitor your life from a distance, watching to see if you miss them, if you're struggling, if you've truly moved on. Your peace becomes their proof of failure, and your silence becomes louder than any argument you ever had with them. In their world, detachment equals defeat. If they can't provoke you, they feel erased. And for a narcissist, being emotionally irrelevant is one of the most terrifying things they can experience. That's why ego collapse is so intense for them, because it's not just about losing a relationship. It's about losing the fantasy of who they think they are. It forces them to face an emptiness. They've spent years covering up with charm, power plays, and manipulation. And when someone walks away unaffected, unmoved, and uncaring, that emptiness echoes louder than ever before. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care and all their usual tactics fail to pull you back in, they often begin looking for a new source of supply. This isn't a coincidence or a random move. It's a survival mechanism. Narcissists don't just want attention or admiration. They need it to maintain their self-worth. Your indifference becomes a mirror they can't bear to look into. So rather than face the discomfort of rejection or insignificance, they turn outward, searching for someone new to validate their ego and feed their emotional hunger. This search for a new supply happens quickly in most cases. Narcissists hate emotional voids, and your silence creates a vacuum that threatens their sense of identity. They don't reflect, heal, or process the end of a relationship the way emotionally healthy individuals do. Instead, they go hunting. They look for someone who is open, empathetic, maybe even vulnerable, someone they can impress, charm, and eventually manipulate. It's not about love. It's not about connection. It's about control admiration, and the emotional fuel they crave. The new person is rarely chosen because of genuine compatibility. They are chosen because they're available and willing to give what the narcissist is now missing from you. Attention, praise, emotional reaction. The narcissist will often present themselves as a victim to this new person. They'll tell stories about how they were mistreated, how they gave everything and were left behind. This earned sympathy, which quickly turns into emotional investment. The cycle begins again. Idealization, attention, flattery, until the new person start to see behind the mask. But for a moment, the narcissist feels powerful again. They're no longer staring at the emotional wound caused by your indifference. They've covered it up with a new source of distraction. During this phase, they may even flaunt the new person in front of you, not necessarily in person, but through mutual friends, social media, or subtle comments designed to provoke a reaction. They want to make you jealous. They want to know they still have an emotional effect on you. If you respond with anger or sadness, they feel validated. In their mind, that's proof they still matter. If you stay silent, they feel the sting of your disinterest all over again. But instead of facing that feeling, they double down on showcasing their new happiness, trying to prove to themselves and others that they've moved on successfully. What they don't realize is that jumping to a new supply doesn't resolve anything. It only postpones the inevitable. The pattern repeats itself because the root problem, their inability to form real reciprocal emotional bonds, remains unrest. Eventually, the charm fades, the mask slips, and the new person begins to see the same traits that made you walk away. And the narcissist ends up back where they started, disappointed, angry, and desperate for validation. It's a cycle of constant pursuit, never fulfillment. While they chase new supply, they may still check in on you from a distance. Narcissists often keep a mental inventory of past partners, people who once provided supply. They may reach out suddenly, acting like nothing happened, or send a vague message to test the waters. If you respond even slightly, it signals to them that the door is still cracked open. If you stay silent, it reminds them again of their loss. This endless search for new supply is not empowerment. It's evidence of emotional instability. They can't sit with themselves. They can't endure the silence. And so they keep reaching outward, trying to avoid the truth within. Your detachment exposed a wound they refuse to treat. And instead of healing, they chase distraction. What they find is temporary. What they lose is real. When a narcissist realizes you truly don't care anymore, one of the most unsettling truths begins to surface for them. They are no longer in control. Control is the core of how narcissists operate. It isn't always obvious or aggressive. Sometimes it's masked in charm, silent treatment, calculated kindness, or guilt. But underneath every word, every move, and every emotional push and pull is one goal: control over how you feel, how you respond, and how you see. Then when you finally detach, when your emotions no longer dance to the rhythm of their manipulation, they face a reality they can't manipulate. The reality of their diminishing power. This loss of control doesn't just frustrate them, it terrifies them. Narcissists don't function well in uncertainty. They rely on knowing that they can trigger you with a glance, a message, a lie, or half-hearted apology, that they can stir up confusion, doubt, or hope when it serves them. When those tools stop working, it feels like standing on quicksand. Their tactics tried and tested on you now fall flat. There's no spark in your eyes, no argument to pull you back in, no tears to feed their ego. You're calm, unbothered, focused elsewhere. And in their world, that's a loss greater than any breakup. They may try to reassert control in subtle or dramatic ways. They might provoke you reaching out with compliments followed by criticism. They may suddenly remind you of old mistakes, frame themselves as misunderstood, or warn you that you'll never find someone like them. Each message, each move is baked, crafted to make you second guess yourself, to elicit any emotional reaction. Because to a narcissist, even your anger is proof that they still matter. Silence, on the other hand, is devastating. It strips them of their leverage. It tells them they're no longer the center of your emotional universe. And for someone who thrives on being the sun in every room, being reduced to background noise is unbearable. When control is lost, some narcissists spiral. Not always visibly. Sometimes they turn the control inward, trying to regain a sense of power through obsessive behavior, stalking your social media, watching your life unfold from the sidelines, gathering information through mutual contacts. They might not say a word, but their silence doesn't mean peace. It means they're watching, waiting, hoping for a crack in your armor. They're looking for signs